The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber swooshed open as Ambassador Tom Miller walked in, carrying his trademark stack of data pads. The other representatives rolled their eyes or made quiet clicking sounds of annoyance. They all knew what was coming. Another careful human assessment filled with unnecessary precautions. The chamber itself was a sight to behold, with its crystal dome revealing the star-filled space above. Around the circular table sat representatives from 30 different species, each more brave and decisive than the last. The rocky-skinned warriors of Alpha Centauri, the proud fire lords of Betelgeuse, and the battle-hardened knights of Rigel, all of them looking down at the simple human in his plain gray suit. "Honorable Council," Tom began, his voice steady despite the dismissive looks. "The gravitational readings from Sector 7 show dangerous patterns. We need to begin evacuation procedures immediately." He activated a holographic display showing swirling patterns of destructive gravitational waves. High Commander Rax of the warrior species let out a booming laugh. "Again with your endless warnings, human. First, it was solar flare preparations, then asteroid detection systems. And now this." His stone-like face cracked into what passed for a smile among his kind. "Tell me, do humans ever tire of jumping at shadows?" The chamber filled with various sounds of amusement, clicks, whistles, and rumbling chuckles. Tom remained standing, his face calm but determined. "The data shows a 78% chance of catastrophic gravitational disturbances within the next 3 months," he continued, switching to another detailed chart. "We've detected unusual wave patterns that don't match any known natural phenomena." Patterns, charts, numbers. The Fire Lord representative's flame-like hair flickered with amusement. "Where is your spirit of adventure? Your species builds triple redundancy into simple food replicators. You put escape pods on escape pods." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Tom noticed some of the younger species representatives joining in, eager to mock the cowardly humans. "Better to have it and not need it," Tom replied calmly, "than need it and not have it. The energy readings are off the charts, and they're growing exponentially. We're talking about the potential displacement of billions of beings if we don't act now." The Knight Commander of Rigel stood up, his metallic armor gleaming under the starlight. "We are warriors, explorer, conquerors. We do not run from strange readings on a screen. If there is danger, we will face it when it comes, with honor and courage." Cheers erupted from around the table. Tom watched as species after species voiced their agreement with the Knight Commander's brave stance. With all due respect, Tom tried one last time. Courage isn't just about fighting. Sometimes it's about enough. High Commander Rax slammed his rocky fist on the table. "We have real matters to discuss. The human delegation's request for emergency evacuation protocols is denied. Next item on the agenda." Tom gathered his data pads, his mind already working on alternative plans. As he walked toward the exit, he heard snippets of conversations behind him. Humans, always hiding behind their shields. "Did you hear they require 4 different safety checks before spacewalks? I heard they still do evacuation drills on their ships every month." Just before the doors closed behind him, Tom activated his communicator. "Command, this is Miller. They rejected the proposal, just as we expected. Initiate Protocol Dark Sky. Better to be called cowards than to be unprepared." "Understood, Ambassador," came the reply. "The emergency supply ships are already being loaded. Evacuation routes are being quietly mapped. All human colonies in the affected sectors have been notified." Tom looked back at the council chamber one last time. The other species were already deep in discussion about trade routes and military parades, the warning about gravitational anomalies forgotten. He shook his head slightly, knowing that humanity would, as always, prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Sometimes, he muttered to himself as he walked away, "The bravest thing you can do is admit that you're scared and prepare accordingly." Behind him, through the crystal dome, a faint distortion rippled across the distant stars. unnoticed by all except the cowardly humans who were already preparing for what was coming. Captain Lisa Reed stood at the window of Human Space Command's underground bunker, watching teams load massive supply ships with emergency provisions. The facility, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, had been called excessive by alien visitors. Right now, she was grateful for that excess. Status report. She called out to the busy control room behind her. Dozens of screens showed evacuation routes, supply chains, and emergency protocols being activated across human space. Emergency supplies are at 60% loaded, Captain, replied Officer Mike Brown from his station. Colony backup systems are green across the board. The civilian ships are being quietly moved into position, disguised as routine maintenance operations. Lisa nodded, remembering how other species had laughed at humanity's insistence on having backup systems for their backup systems. The memory of last week's Galactic Council meeting still burned fresh in her mind. Ambassador Miller's warning ignored, human caution mocked once again. A red light flashed on the main screen, drawing everyone's attention. Captain, called out Officer Brown, we're detecting the first major gravitational spike in the Proxima sector. Lisa rushed to the central command table, which displayed a 3D map of the affected region. The gravitational distortion was exactly where their calculations had predicted it would appear. Any alien outposts in the immediate danger zone? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Yes, Captain. The warriors of Alpha Centauri have a mining station right in the path. They're refusing to evacuate. Say it would be dishonorable to retreat from mere scientific readings. Lisa closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with renewed determination. Send in our emergency response ships anyway. Keep them at a safe distance, but close enough to assist if needed. The warriors won't like that. Someone muttered from across the room. Better angry than dead, Lisa replied firmly. Continue loading operations. I want all emergency bunkers ready within 48 hours. Just then, her communication screen lit up with an incoming call from the alien mining station. The face of Warrior Commander Grax appeared, his rocky features twisted in what passed for a sneer among his kind. Human Captain, he growled, remove your rescue vessels from our space immediately. We do not need your cowardly presence contaminating our honor. Lisa kept her voice calm and professional. Commander, our readings show you have less than 6 hours before the gravitational wave hits your station. Please, allow us to assist in evacuation procedures. Evacuation. Grax laughed, a sound like grinding stones, like scared little humans. We are warriors. We do not run from invisible threats that exist only in your overly cautious minds. Before Lisa could respond, her sensors lit up with new warnings. The gravitational distortion was accelerating, moving faster than their initial predictions. Commander, she tried one last time. At least let us deliver some emergency supplies. The communication cut off as the first gravitational wave hit the mining station. On the main screen, Lisa and her crew watched in horror as the massive structure began to break apart. Emergency response ships, move in now. Lisa ordered, begin rescue operations as soon as the wave passes. All teams, full safety protocols in effect. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Human rescue ships, already positioned and prepared thanks to their paranoid planning, managed to save 60% of the station's crew. The warriors, despite their initial resistance, found themselves alive thanks to the very humans they had mocked. As Lisa oversaw the rescue operations, her second-in-command stepped up beside her. The other alien species are starting to request information about our evacuation protocols, he reported. Seems watching that mining station fall apart has made them slightly less dismissive of human caution. Send them everything we have, Lisa ordered, but maintain our own preparation schedule. This is just the beginning. She turned back to the main screen, where more gravitational anomalies were appearing exactly where their models had predicted. Being called cowards is a small price to pay for being ready, she said quietly, watching as her crews continued their methodical preparation for the crisis she knew was coming. Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking enough precautions. In orbit above Earth, hundreds of supply ships continued loading, their crews following careful, detailed protocols that other species found laughably excessive. But as reports of more gravitational distortions began flooding in from across the galaxy, those laughs were starting to sound increasingly hollow. The emergency alert blared through 3 different systems because humans always had backups as the massive gravitational wave approached the Rigel colony. The Knights of Rigel stood proud in their gleaming armor, weapons raised against an enemy they couldn't fight, while human rescue ships dropped out of hyperspace all around them. "This is Captain Robert West of the Human Emergency Response Fleet." A calm voice transmitted across all frequencies. "We have transportation ready for immediate evacuation. Please proceed to your designated gathering points." The Knights' response was predictable. "We will not retreat," their commander declared, his armor glinting in the light of their dying sun. Knights of Rigel faced death with. The transmission cut off as the first wave hit. The planet's crust began to crack, and the Knights' mighty fortress started crumbling around them. In orbit, Robert watched the destruction through his ship's reinforced viewports. "All rescue teams, deploy now. Full safety protocols in effect. Remember your drills." Dozens of human ships, pre-positioned weeks ago despite alien protests, swooped down through the atmosphere. Their hulls were triple reinforced, another unnecessary human precaution that now proved vital as gravitational forces tried to tear them apart. "Team Alpha, take the eastern continent," Robert ordered. "Beta, west. Gamma, handle the space stations. Everything by the book, people, just like we practiced." The humans moved with practiced precision, following emergency protocols they drilled hundreds of times. Their ships, designed with multiple redundant systems, weathered the gravitational storms while more advanced alien vessels were torn apart. In the colony's main plaza, Mark Davis piloted his rescue shuttle through debris-filled air. The Knights of Rigel, their proud stance finally broken by reality, rushed toward the human ships they'd mocked just days before. "Please remain calm," Mark announced through his speakers. "We have room for everyone. Follow the lighted pathways." "Yes, all 3 of them. Better to have backups, right?" Some of the Knights actually managed weak laughs at that. Their derision of human over-preparation had vanished in the face of survival. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The Fire Lords of Betelgeuse found themselves grateful for human-designed heat shields. The warriors of Alpha Centauri, what remained of them after the mining station incident, quietly accepted human assistance in evacuating their colonies. Back on the command ship, Robert received a troubling report. "Captain," his science officer called out, "these readings don't make sense. The gravitational patterns, they're too regular, too precise." Robert moved to the science station, studying the data. Years of human caution had taught them to look for patterns, to analyze everything. "You're right," he said slowly. "This isn't natural. Send all data to Earth Command immediately, through all 3 secure channels." As the rescue operations continued, more evidence emerged. The gravitational waves weren't random. They followed specific patterns, almost like a machine, Robert muttered, watching the waves ripple across space. "This isn't a natural phenomenon. It's a weapon." A new alert sounded. The Fire Lord's home system was next in line for devastation. Their proud ships formed battle lines, preparing to fight the invisible force through sheer willpower. "All ships, move to assist the Fire Lords," Robert ordered, "but maintain safe distance protocols. We're not losing anyone to unnecessary heroics." As human rescue ships approached, the Fire Lord's commander opened a channel. "Human," he said, his flame-like hair flickering with what might have been embarrassment, "your cautious approach to danger. Perhaps we were hasty in dismissing it." Robert allowed himself a small smile. "Save the galaxy first, discuss philosophy later. Now, please follow our evacuation procedures. Yes, all three versions of them. The rescue operations continued across space, with human ships saving millions through careful planning and multiple redundancies. Their cowardly preparation had become the galaxy's best hope for survival. In the command center, Robert studied the weapon-like patterns of the gravitational waves. Humanity's tendency to plan for the worst had saved countless lives today. Now that same cautious nature might help them understand what they were really facing. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them we need to look deeper. If this is a weapon, someone built it. And if humans are good at anything, it's thinking about everything that could go wrong." His crew finished with him, managing tired smiles as they continued their careful, methodical work of saving a galaxy that had laughed at their caution. Dr. James Walker paced in his laboratory aboard the Deep Space Research Station, Prudence, a name other species had once mocked. The walls were covered with displays showing gravitational wave patterns, each monitored by triple redundant sensors, another human weakness that was now proving invaluable. "Play it again," he told his computer. "Slow the pattern down to 1/10 speed." The holographic display in the center of the lab showed the wave patterns one more time. James watched, his natural human fear response triggering that familiar gut feeling that something wasn't right. "Humans always look for danger," his alien colleagues used to say, always imagining the worst. But right now, that very tendency was helping him see what others had missed. The door slid open, with its backup manual release clearly marked, of course, and in walked Dr. Bill Turner, the station's chief engineer. "Found something interesting in the power readings," he said, holding up a datapad. "Something that would have been missed if we hadn't installed those extra sensors everyone called paranoid." James nodded, still watching the pattern. "The waves aren't random. They're not even trying to look random. It's like they want to be found." Bill finished, by someone cautious enough to look carefully. The two humans shared a knowing look. Their species' tendency to double-check everything, to look for problems before they happened, was revealing something incredible. "Computer," James called out, "overlay the wave patterns with known ancient star maps." A standard request for humans, always checking historical records for potential threats. A hologram shifted, showing stars and gravitational waves together. Nothing seemed to match, until... Wait, Bill pointed at a particular section. "That pattern. It matches the old trading routes from the archival records. The ones from 1,000,000 years ago." James felt a chill run down his spine, that human instinct for danger kicking in again. "Computer, show all known ancient civilizations that use those routes." The display changed again, revealing information about a long-dead species called the predecessors. According to the records, they had vanished suddenly, leaving behind only myths and rumors. "Look at this," James pointed to a section of data. The predecessors were supposed to be the most advanced species ever known, but they disappeared overnight. No war, no disaster, just gone. Bill was already checking the backup databases. Humans never relied on just one source. Found something in the deep archives. The predecessors were working on a massive project before they vanished. Something about galactic restructuring. A new alert sounded, all three versions of it, as another gravitational wave formed. But this time, James watched it with different eyes. "It's not a natural disaster," he said slowly. "It's not even really a weapon. It's construction equipment. The predecessors were trying to reshape the galaxy itself." Bill's face paled, and something went wrong. The equipment activated, but they couldn't control it. "So they ran away," James finished. "They did the smart thing. The thing everyone calls humans cowardly for doing. They evacuated." The two scientists worked frantically, checking and triple-checking their findings through multiple systems. The gravitational waves weren't random attacks. They were part of an ancient construction project gone wrong, activating after millions of years of dormancy. "Send everything to Earth Command," James ordered, "through all channels, and start running simulations on how to shut it down." Already on it, Bill replied, human caution showing in how he backed up each simulation 3 different ways. You know what this means, right? Our species' so-called cowardice. Our need to check everything, plan for everything, prepare for the worst. It's exactly what we needed to solve this. James nodded. While everyone else was trying to fight the waves, we were the only ones scared enough to actually study them properly. As they worked, the station's reinforced windows showed another gravitational wave forming in the distance. But now they understood what they were seeing. It wasn't just a disaster to survive. It was a puzzle to solve. Guess being called cowards was worth it, Bill said, carefully documenting every step of their discovery. In triplicate, naturally. Our fear just might save everyone. James smiled, watching their careful, methodical work progress. That's the thing about humans. We're not fearless. We're better than that. We're smart enough to be scared. The Emergency Command Center on Earth was filled with representatives from every major alien species. They watched in silence as another holographic display showed a colony disappearing into gravitational chaos. The room, built with multiple backup power systems and reinforced walls, felt more cramped than usual. Commander Alex Rogers stood at the main console, facing the gathered aliens. The gravitational waves are increasing in frequency, he said, pointing to the data streams. We have less than 72 hours before they reach major population centers. Then we must fight, declared the Fire Lord representative, his flame hair flickering with intensity. We will not run like cowards. Alex interrupted quietly. Like humans. He pressed a button, showing a map of evacuated zones. Every sector where people listen to our warnings is safe. Every sector that chose to stand and fight has casualties. The room fell silent. Even the warriors of Alpha Centauri, their rocky skin bearing fresh cracks from recent evacuations, couldn't argue with the numbers. The research station Prudence has confirmed this is ancient technology, Alex continued. We can't fight it. Not directly. But we can save lives by moving people out of its path while we work on a solution. A knight of Rigel stepped forward, his once shiny armor now scratched and dull. My people, we are warriors. Retreat goes against everything we believe. Sometimes, Alex replied, the bravest thing you can do is admit you're scared and act accordingly. The command center screens lit up with new warnings. The gravitational waves were forming patterns they hadn't seen before, creating a web of destruction across space. We have ships ready, Alex announced. Enough to evacuate everyone in the danger zones. Yes, we prepared them weeks ago. Yes, everyone called us paranoid. And yes, those ships are the difference between life and death now. The alien representatives looked at each other. Decades of mocking human caution were being washed away by the reality of survival. The warrior clans, the Alpha Centaurian representative began slowly, we request evacuation assistance. As do the Fire Lords, their representative added, flame hair dimmed with humility. One by one, the proud alien species set aside their prejudices against human cowardice. The command center became a hub of coordinated evacuation efforts, with human ships leading the way. All sectors, report in, Alex called out, watching the evacuation map fill with data. Sector 7 evacuation at 60% and climbing, came one response. Sector 12 nearly complete, moving to assist Sector 13, reported another. The aliens watched in amazement as human evacuation protocols, drilled hundreds of times, backed up with redundant systems, planned for every contingency, smoothly handled the movement of billions of beings. A junior officer rushed in with new data from the research station. Commander, the waves are starting to resonate with each other. The effect is amplifying. Alex studied the new information, his human instinct for danger screaming warnings. Move everything forward by 24 hours, he ordered. I want all danger zones cleared in 2 days, not 3. But the original calculations, someone started to protest. Human paranoia. Alex cut in with a grim smile. Always plan for things to go wrong faster than expected. The Knight of Rigel stepped closer to the main display. I begin to understand, he said quietly. What we called cowardice was wisdom all along. You feared not because you were weak, but because you were wise enough to see the danger. Alex nodded, already focusing on the next evacuation zone. Fear keeps you alive. Panic kills you. The trick is to feel the fear and think through it. As if to emphasize his point, 3 backup alarms activated simultaneously. The gravitational waves were indeed accelerating faster than originally predicted. All ships, implement rapid evacuation protocols, Alex ordered. Yes, the ones everyone called excessive. Move now. The alien representatives watched as their populations were saved by human ships, human plans, and human caution. Their long-held beliefs about courage and cowardice were being rewritten with every successful evacuation. Perhaps, the Fire Lord representative mused, watching his people being safely transported away from danger. It is time we learn the difference between foolish bravery and wise caution. Alex barely heard him, already working on the next phase of evacuations, because that was the human way. Plan for the worst, hope for the best, and never stop preparing for what might come next. The Joint Species Command Center buzzed with activity as humans and aliens worked side by side. Major David Cooper studied the massive holographic display showing the ancient predecessor device's gravitational wave patterns. After weeks of evacuation efforts, it was time to face the threat itself. Your solution is, what? Asked the warrior commander, his rocky features twisted in confusion. You want to just turn it off. Exactly, David replied, bringing up the research data from Station Prudence. No epic battles, no heroic sacrifices, just careful analysis and a smart shutdown procedure. The alien representatives exchanged looks. Even after everything, they had expected some grand final stand. Think about it, David continued. The predecessors built this device with controls. They didn't want it destroying things forever. They must have included a way to stop it. The Fire Lord representative's flame hair flickered thoughtfully. And your human cautiousness helped you find this. Triple redundant scans of the wave patterns, David nodded, plus backup analysis of ancient records. And yes, multiple safety protocols for the shutdown attempt. He pulled up a new display showing the device's predicted location, a massive structure hidden in the space between galaxies. The human fleet was already positioned nearby, maintaining what the aliens considered an excessively safe distance. The device works like a construction tool, David explained. It's supposed to reshape gravity to move stars and planets, but after millions of years without maintenance, it malfunctioned, the Knight Commander finished, like a sword with a cracked blade. Exactly. But tools have off switches. We just need to be careful about how we use it. A warning flashed across the screens, all 3 sets of them. The gravitational waves were forming new patterns, more destructive than before. Time for Phase 1, David announced. He opened a channel to the human fleet. All ships begin approach pattern Delta. Yes, the extra slow one. Better safe than sorry. The aliens watched as human ships moved with deliberate, practiced precision. Each step had been simulated hundreds of times, each possible problem planned for in advance. Launch the probe arrays, David ordered. Full sensor coverage. Dozens of probes, backed up by dozens more spares, spread out around the massive ancient device. Its surface was covered in symbols and patterns that pulsed with each gravitational wave. Look, David pointed to a section of the display. The wave patterns matched the control symbols. The device is trying to tell us how to operate it. The Knight Commander leaned forward. You mean all this time? It was sending us the instruction manual, David smiled. We just needed to be cautious enough to study it properly instead of trying to destroy it. Data poured in from the probe network. The human tendency to over-prepare meant they had every kind of sensor imaginable scanning the device. There, David pointed to a particular pattern. That's not a warning symbol. It's a shutdown sequence. The predecessors left instructions for future species to find. But why didn't they stay and fix it themselves? The Fire Lord asked. Because they were smart, David replied. Like humans, they knew when a situation was too dangerous to face directly. They evacuated, left instructions, and trusted that eventually someone would be careful enough to find them. A new alert sounded across the command center. The device was powering up for another wave, bigger than any before. All ships, maintain safe distance, David ordered. Begin shutdown sequence transmission. Through all backup channels, naturally. The aliens watched as human caution and preparation came together. The fleet transmitted the shutdown codes while maintaining careful formation. Every step was double and triple checked. Gravitational waves decreasing by 5%, reported a sensor operator. 10%, 15%. The command center held its breath, all species together, as the ancient device began to power down. It's working, the warrior commander said in amazement. Your human caution is actually. Another alarm cut him off. Something was wrong with the shutdown sequence. Problem in Sector 7. A technician called out. The device is. Switching to backup plan B, David interrupted calmly. Just like we practiced. All ships, maintain position and prepare for alternative shutdown procedure. The alien stared at him. You have a backup plan. David allowed himself a small smile. We have backup plans A through Z because that's what humans do. We don't just prepare for success. We prepare for every possible way things could go wrong. And as the ancient device pulsed with dangerous energy, humanity's excessive preparation was about to be tested one final time. The ancient predecessor device loomed before them, its massive form pulsing with dangerous energy as Plan A's shutdown sequence failed. In the Joint Species Command Center, every screen showed warning signals, naturally, in triplicate. Major David Cooper remained calm. Initialize Plan B, he ordered, just like we practiced. You actually practiced for this exact scenario? The Fire Lord representative asked, his flame hair flickering with surprise. We practiced for everything, David replied, his fingers moving across the control panel. Humans always expect things to go wrong. So we planned for it. The backup shutdown sequence began transmitting from human ships positioned at carefully calculated distances. Years of being called paranoid for maintaining safe distances was paying off. Energy readings climbing, called out a sensor operator. The device is rejecting Plan B. The alien representatives tensed, expecting panic. Instead, they watched in amazement as the humans calmly shifted to their next contingency. Plan C, everyone, David announced. Standard safety protocols. Remember the drills. The Knight Commander shook his head in wonder. All those drills we mocked, all those backup plans we called excessive, are exactly what we need right now, David finished, studying the device's reaction. Each failed attempt is giving us more data, more understanding. On the main screen, the ancient device's symbols pulsed in new patterns. The human fleet maintained their precise positions, gathering data through multiple redundant sensor arrays. Look at this, David pointed to a new reading. The device isn't rejecting our shutdown commands. It's waiting. Waiting for what? Asked the warrior commander. Waiting to make sure we understand what we're doing, David replied. The predecessors weren't just smart enough to run away. They were smart enough to make sure whoever found their device would be careful enough to use it safely. Understanding dawned across alien faces. The device's apparent malfunction, the increasing waves, the failed shutdown attempts, it was all a test. This wasn't just a broken machine, the Fire Lord said slowly. It was a test to find a species cautious enough to handle its power. David nodded, already implementing Plan D, a species that would evacuate first and ask questions later. That would study the problem from a safe distance. That would make backup plans for their backup plans. The device's energy readings began to stabilize. Each failed shutdown attempt had actually been a step in proving humanity's worthiness. Final shutdown sequence initiating, David announced. All ships maintain safety positions, all sensors recording. Yes, all 3 sets. The command center watched as the device's symbols pulsed one last time. Then, slowly, the gravitational waves began to fade. Wave intensity dropping, reported the sensor operator. 40%, 60%, 80%. The aliens held their breath as the ancient machine's glow dimmed. Finally, after one last pulse, the waves stopped completely. New symbols appeared on the device's surface. The translation computers, all 3 of them, worked quickly. "It's a message," David said, reading the display. "To those who showed wisdom in the face of power, to those who chose caution over glory, to those who understood that true bravery lies not in fearlessness, but in facing fear with wisdom. The legacy of the predecessors is yours." The command center erupted in cheers, human and alien alike. The Fire Lord's flames burned bright with joy. The warrior's rocky skin gleamed, and the knight's armor reflected the celebration's light. "Your human caution," the warrior commander said, turning to David. "It was never cowardice at all, was it?" David smiled, already making notes for improving their emergency protocols. Fear keeps you alive long enough to solve problems. Panic gets you killed. Humans just happened to learn that lesson early. In the following days, as the galaxy began to rebuild, things changed. Alien ships began carrying backup systems. Emergency protocols were implemented across all species. The word human was no longer synonymous with cowardice, but with wisdom. And in the Joint Species Command Center, they added a new sign above the door. "Bravery without caution is just recklessness in disguise." Below it, in smaller print, was a very human addition. "And yes, we have backup copies of this sign, just in case."